Hello. Yeah, that's fine. Hello, this is Anand. Uh, Distinct guests, esteemed dignitaries, colleagues from international ideas, experts, and friends. It is my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of you to this important international conference on reimagining democracy for future, democracy in 2050, organized by India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management, called Triple IDM. India is proud to hold the chairship of the Council of Member of States of International IDEA for 2026. This chairship, uniquely led by Election Commission of India, brings the practitioner perspective to the world's largest and most diverse democracy to the global stage. Triple IDM, established by Election Commission of India in 2011 as a global resource center for democracy and election management, is proudly serving as the nodal agency for the chairship. Our theme for the chairship, Democracy for an Inclusive, Peaceful, Resilient and Sustainable World, is deeply rooted in India's civilizational ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. It reflects our commitment to the sharing not only lessons from India's vibrant democratic journey, but also democratic values enshrined in our ancient heritage. While focusing on inclusive, resilient, and sustainable development, this chairship serves as a powerful platform for collective international stewardship. By combining Election Commission of India's leadership and Triple IDM's convening strength with international ideas global expertise, we aim to create a laboratory for democratic and electoral innovation. Our efforts rest on two key thematic pillars. First is reimagining democracy for future, and second is independent and professional election management bodies for sustainable democracy. Today's conference focuses on one of the important priorities under the first pillar, democracy in 2050. This initiative encourages policymakers and institutional leaders to design democratic systems that are future ready. It seeks to provide a future forward-looking platform for us to collectively envision democracy as a driver for peace, inclusion, sustainability, and resilience. A world where no one is left behind, where differences are resolved through dialogue, and where institutions are strong enough to navigate climate challenges and technological disruptions through adaptive and responsive governance. While this, I invite our moderator, Emma, and its distinguished speakers, and our Honorable Director General Sri Rakesh Kumarji. We look forward to your active engagement and contribution to shaping a shared vision for democracy in 2050. Thank you. Let the deliberations begin. Sir, we call upon DG sir on the stage to give a opening statement. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished speakers, moderator of the session, guests, delegates, our partners, and everyone who's connected virtually and in this room. I extend a very warm welcome to everyone to this opening session of 2 days conference, which is around one of our key thematic priority, which is reimagining democracy for future, democracy in 2050. So as my speaker just introduced, India is currently chairing the Council of Member States of International IDEA, and so and this chairship is led by Chief Election Commissioner, Election Commission of India on behalf of India, which is also a very unique arrangement in recognition of the fact that Election Commission of India has built an unparalleled legacy of more than 75 years of conducting the elections in such a large and diverse democracy. The India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management is set up by Election Commission of India, and with the purpose of training, capacity building, research and advocacy. So we are helping the Election Commission of India in this chairship and guiding most of the thematic priorities in partnership with international IDEA. I have a brief presentation just to set the context for this particular workshop and our thematic priority. So if we, I think we had changed. This is, I had shared in the group. So any case, this priority reflects our work. This priority reflects our work on this particular theme, reimagining democracy for future, looking at several aspects. Democracy is represented by systems, forms, processes, but we're also looking at what are the deliverables that democracy is expected to achieve. What are the outcomes that we are looking at? And that's where our overarching theme for the chairship and the 4 pillars of deliverables: inclusion, peace, resilience, and sustainability. We also look at what has succeeded so far, what are the areas of lesser weakness, what are the opportunities, where, and also the threats that we must be aware of. We also look at what are the pathways to improvement, how do we move forward. There are countries at different levels of maturity, different levels of practice, different levels of system. So that's another important aspect that as part of our thematic work we will be covering. And then looking at key drivers of change, and how do we leverage them, and also the pitfalls of some of these drivers of change which can adversely impact. Can we have the other slides? So this is not this. So like I said, this priority is chosen. So we have 2 thematic pillars. One is about independent and professional election management bodies, which we think are fundamental to sustainable democracy. And the second is the democratic future itself. So reimagining democratic future, and also looking at how democracy has delivered on the promise. So the reimagining democracy for 2050 will look at how the democracy has been successful. I mean, we are all aware of many pitfalls of democracy where it has failed to deliver, where the institutions have failed, the leaders have failed. But then there are plenty of stories of success. There are many areas where we have delivered, and it's very important for us to highlight those cases, highlight those success stories, build trust and confidence of the stakeholders, of youth, of citizens for whom we, and also develop global perspective. Our focus within the overall global perspective is also to look at global south, because the challenges being faced in this part of the world are also very unique, both democracy and development. So it's very important that we have clarity as to what are the kind of challenges which democracy is expected to address, and develop perspective which are suited both in the local and global context. And when we look at the future, we must learn from the past. We must also make sure that we are conscious of what are the demands of future, and build our institutions, build our processes, build our policies accordingly. And the long-term governance, another issue is the democracy becomes cyclic and the cycles are reducing. So how do you overcome the negative impact of the short-term vision, the short-term planning that happens vis-a-vis long-term governance? So coming back, how do you, democracy is known by representation, rights, participation, justice, but also we need to look at what is the end result that we are achieving. What is to the, the society that we are going to deliver, what we are going to deliver to individuals. So at a very top level, we are looking at these 4 pillars. Inclusion, which means that all individuals, irrespective of the background, irrespective of their status, are treated as equal. They are integrated into system. They are heard and valued. Peace, again, both at the local level, at regional level, and also at the global level, how does democracy deliver on a peaceful society? What mechanisms and what institutions can really help us achieve through democratic processes and systems peace in the society? Resilience. We also understand that we live in a world which has a lot of uncertainty. There are ups and downs in all areas, whether it's the pandemic that we faced, where it is the financial instability that we faced, where the emerging new technologies and the ill effects of some of those technologies. So how do we prepare? How can democracy prepare itself for delivering on resilience, a resilient society? And then sustainability, biggest of all, the challenge that we face. Are we moving on a development path which is sustainable? And are we looking at that in a holistic way? And that's where the sustainable development goals, which represent a consensus of all countries, have been laid out. How does democracy enables delivery of sustainable development goals? So at a very broad level, we are looking at these 4 deliverables. We feel they are very comprehensive. They cover various aspects of individual and social aspiration. And that's where we would like to work and build our report and the recommendations. So we are looking at the deliverables of inclusion, peace, resilience, and sustainability. So how does democracy deliver? So which are the democratic processes, which are the democratic principles, which are the democratic systems which lead to different, again, these are all cross-cutting, they are overlapping, but just to have some more clarity, looking at how inclusion can be achieved through political participation, through representation, through legal rights, civic engagement, inclusive service delivery. So we need to look at these democratic processes. How do we strengthen them to ensure our delivery on inclusion? Similarly, if you look at peace, how do we develop a process of dialogue, dispute resolution, which is non-violent? How do we accommodate more social divisions? How do we evolve norms of peaceful resolution so that democratic institutions, democratic policies, and the processes can lead to peace? Similarly, for resilience, we need to look at a governance which is more adaptive, which is flexible, which takes into account the civil society and builds on their support system and is transparent. So these democratic processes, ideals help us achieve resilience. Sustainability, again, how do you leverage democratic processes and institutions to ensure sustainable development? That's again the processes, democratic processes and the principles of accountability, transparency, rule of law, evidence-based decision making, long-term planning. These could lead to more sustainable outcomes for the society. Looking at 2050, what kind of world we are looking at, what do we expect our democracy to deliver for us as we transport ourselves in 2050? Again, looking at all the 4 broad pillars in terms of inclusion. Obviously, these are all a bit of rhetoric and bit of utopian, but that's where we need to really look at. That's the ideal we would like to democracy to achieve, and that the democratic system has that beauty. It has empowered individuals to look at equal. It has empowered everyone for those aspirations. So the first premise is that if you're looking at inclusion, we need to make sure that everyone feels part of the world. No one should feel left behind. All systems, all processes, everything has to be developed in a way where we assure of every individual that he is part of the process, he is part of the society, he is part of the delivery. Peace, again, everyone has to feel secure, both in terms of his local context and global context. Resilience, we need to develop that capacity where society can feel and address the uncertainties, rather than being overwhelmed by them or causing a major disruption. We should have a society, we should have which has resilience, which can withstand the change, the uncertainties in the world. And also we need a world where humanity lives in balance with nature. So looking at it again, that's left to the are these sessions to deliberate and the experts, to policymakers. Where have we succeeded? You know, democracy obviously leads to immediate political participation and civic engagement. It does come very naturally wherever democracy has gone. The rule of law and transparency does get established, and we do get, because of the engagement with citizens, because of the engagement with civil society, a more resilience in the society. But then there are also weaknesses that probably need to be addressed. We need to be aware, we need to strengthen our system for future, where we can deal with political uncertainties, we could deal with corruption, we could make sure that the institutions perform what they are expected to perform. We also enhance the capacity of the state to really deliver on the promises. You know, the institution, the state, and the larger organizational structures which deliver value to the citizens. The opportunities, again, the digital governance, that's something which has fundamentally changed the rules of the game. You know, the way we today empower citizens by way of technology, both access to internet and access to content, that holds immense promise for our future delivery. We also have youth leadership, particularly in the global south, let's say a country like India, which is increasingly going to be younger and younger, and that is where the potential is. They have those aspirations, they have that hunger, they're getting talents. So how do we leverage that to make sure that whatever weaknesses we have in the system, we are able to overcome? The green transition, we've realized that the development model that we have adopted in the past is not necessarily going to yield us good in the future. So we need to course correct that, and that's also an opportunity to create more jobs, more economic development, and more sustainable growth. Some of the threats that we need to be aware, one is obviously which the information environment, and that's where, particularly propelled by artificial intelligence, it might create a lot of distortion, disruption, and we must find way of responsible use of AI, responsible governance. Climate and social fragmentation, there is a lot of awareness, there is a lot of consensus around it, but still I think it needs, we need to be aware that our policies, our institutions need to be more proactive in addressing these challenges. External election interference also, because of driven by AI, driven by many other consideration, and since the elections constitute the foundation for democracy, it's very important that we ensure that electoral integrity is maintained at all costs. So when we're looking at some pathways, some roadmap for reimagining democracy and what we all need to do, uh, we as a group would be looking at where it has delivered success, where we have proven models of success, proven case studies. How can others use that? How can we replicate them? How can we scale them at, somewhere it may have happened at the local level, can it become national? Somewhere it may have happened at the national level, can it become regional? Somewhere it may have succeeded at regional level, can it become global? So a lot of effort is required to look at what has succeeded and let's build on the success. And the second is equally important. If some places there is gap, we have not been able to really build that success, how do we continuously improve upon that? How do we strengthen those systems? How do we improve those systems? And that's where our work should be focused. And obviously we need to be aware and response to the future. Whatever the challenges that are going to come our way, we need to find ways, we need to be aware, we need to build partnerships, we need to build solutions which can really make sure that we offer a good response to the threats that we might have in future. And we must leverage all the drivers of positive change, what we have, like I said, in terms of youth leadership, youth energy, in terms of digitalization, data-driven governance. These are huge. In case we are able to channelize them, if we are able to really build a roadmap for them and they feel involved in democracy, democratic institution, there are huge transformation which can be brought about. Again, democracy and deliverables that we are talking about, there is a symbiotic cycle. As we achieve peace, inclusion, resilience, and sustainability, it also strengthens democratic processes. It also strengthens participation. It strengthens rule of law. It strengthens individual dignity. So we need to look at both of them together as we look at democratic processes, democratic forms, achieving better outcomes on those processes, forms, and institutions. We also need to reinforce them with the deliverables that we are talking about. So understanding that, and none of them should be thought in isolation. That we achieve something in isolation about the processes, and some of us do measure the success of democracy only in terms of form and processes, which may be a half-baked story. We need to look at the full spectrum, where there are forms, institution, representation, but also deliverables. What is being delivered to the citizen year on year, month on month, whether it is housing for him, whether it is water for him, whether it is electricity for him, whether it is road for him. How do we put the full spectrum before us when we look at what democracy has been able to deliver, what is democracy achieving for us? So key drivers of change, I'm sure there are sessions around it. There will be experts, and others will be talking how AI and information technology, the kind of profound impact it can have. Democracy was all about transparency, about sharing. Earlier you had no means, even if you wanted, if you wished, if you had intention, but there was little that you could have done. Today, with social media, with the kind of platforms we have, the kind of tools we have, every person can run his own channel, every person can broadcast whatever he wants to. So the kind of empowerment we had thought by law, technology has given him. Obviously there are regulations and there are limitations, but I'm thinking, what could be achieved by way of technology and this progress is tremendous. Similarly, the youth, the kind of demographics we have at this time, as I said, particularly in the global south, if they are directed well, if they are coached well, if they are guided well, we can achieve tremendously. Migration and diversity, again, there are both positive and negative. We need to look at it very carefully. Climate and sustainability, and some of the pitfalls of economic transformation that we need to be aware of. This is the last slide. Again, when you're looking at pathways, everyone's journey, every country's journey has to be different. It will have to take into account where they are, how their systems and processes are, because within even broad spectrum of democracy, there are different levels of development, there are different levels of existence. So, it's very difficult to say that one global model for pathways ahead can be there. So we need to be aware, and probably each country needs to move in a gradual fashion from a basic foundation where there are core democratic institutions in place, rule of law and basic service delivery, moving to the next level where we have been able to decentralize the function which can be handled at the local level, where we have brought technology in the mainstream, and where we have expanded civic engagement, to a last pinnacle where we have reached citizens as active partners, and where our outcomes are inclusive and we have lasting democratic values. So these are some of the thoughts. This is some of the context for our thematic work, and I hope the 8 sessions that we have over 2 days will give us a lot of ideas, and it will help us put together thoughts for our thematic work and the report that we are preparing. Thank you.